Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Antry, and apparently my face is frozen really silly right now. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, I am Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered, and it's very fitting. This might be the final time we're using Google Hangouts to
Might not
see
be.
each other
It is
and
the
record the
final time.
podcast.
They are killing
Yeah,
it after
they are
this.
killing it. That's right.
So it'll either be YouTube Live or I don't know what we'll do. I literally have zero plan. I've been way too focused on the SVS contest to care one iota about Google messing everything up for us yet again.
They do enjoy it. But what is the thing you're focused on? I think it might be our SVS giveaway in celebration of our 500th episode, which was just 2 episodes ago.
As we talked about last week, that it hadn't gone live yet. We said it would be going live the time the podcast was posted. And in fact, it did. It went live Thursday morning at 0001 a.m. That was the earliest I could make it go. So that it went live right away, and we immediately got a bunch of entries. So that's going well. SVS has tweeted themselves, and right now it looks like we've got a good start for this. We've got a month. You've got the month of September to enter. All you need to do is put in your email address. I have to find that email. Did have one guy email me because you're supposed to get some sort of confirmation email. Somebody said they didn't get their confirmation email. If you put your correct email address in there, it's going to be recorded. I don't know why the confirmation email wouldn't have gone out, but it will be in the database. I need to check all that, make sure everything's working right. But it seems to be working really super well so far. What do you get? Put in your email address, and you are entered to win either a pair of PB 1000 subwoofers or an Prime Satellite 5.1 speaker package, which has 5 of the Prime Satellite speakers, along with an SB, the sealed box, 1000 subwoofer. Both of those have about a retail price of about $1,000. So for an email address, that's a pretty good deal.
That is a pretty nice deal, yes. And so by entering your email address, the only cost to you, if you want to consider it, that is that you will be signed up for SVS's newsletter. But that's about it. It is only open to residents in the United States and Canada. So we have confirmed that. It is United States and Canada. We did have some folks post on our Facebook page. They're like, oh, I'm not in the US or Canada. And we do apologize. I mean, we would love to make it worldwide or whatever, but obviously we must defer to where SVS is willing to ship their products for this giveaway. So US and Canada only, but at least Canada, yay!
Yeah, Canada.
That's good.
I know
it's international.
I've heard
that's
some
right.
saying that they're very excited about them. Could be your lucky day. Hey,
yep. That's right. So right now, it looks very favorable to enter. Like, your chances of winning are better than most other contests because it's all dependent on the number of entries. So
right now we're under 400 entries so far, which is pretty good for a week. I wouldn't mind seeing 2,000-3,000 entries overall. I think that'd be a good number, and everybody would still have a pretty good chance.
Well, it's not even a week. It's really like 5 days, not even.
I guess you're right. You're right.
We're doing okay.
It's only been 5 days. I'm pretty happy with how things are going so far. So, and really, this is just a thank you to our listeners and a way of SVS supporting the podcast without actually giving us any money. So, because that's keeping us unbiased,
right,
and able to give out advice without people saying, "Oh, well, they just like SVS because they give a bunch of advertising dollars." Yeah, all those fat advertising dollars. Now we are talking them up on the podcast because of the contest, but we'd be talking about them anyways because we always recommend not always, but we often recommend their subwoofers for our people who are asking questions of us in the So yeah, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers when we're not giving away subwoofers. We answer your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You're welcome to CC Rob at AV Rant and Tom at AV Rant, but the question is the important one. If the question email goes through and you haven't CC'd the rest of us, pretty sure we're going to get us forward right away from Austen, our producer, who will let us know that came in. If not, they'll just pop it onto the question list, and we'll see it when it pops up there. You can go to www.avrant.com, leave us a comment there. That is a good way to get out there. Or at facebook.com/AVRant podcast. We're very active there as well. Go to Twitter at First Reflect for Rob and at AVRant_Tom for me. And at Austen Pond for Austin, our producer. He also has his own podcast, We Watch Movies. It's a podcast about the wrappers on crayons.
The paper?
What you can... The paper, yes.
Okay.
And what you can do with them, crafty type things. I think they weave them a lot. The weaving, I don't really understand what it does. It's a very strange podcast. I think it has a listenership of like 4.
Could be.
I think 3 of them.
The wrappers on crayons. All right.
The wrappers on crayons. Hey,
once you start
got the thing.
Once you start sharpening those crayons, that wrapper's got to go. So there you go. Might as well.
It's true.
Might as well use it for something. So yes.
Does anybody actually sharpen crayons? Is that a thing that happens?
You
don't just like use the edge?
No, when you get the big box, you get the sharpener in the back there. That was like the whole reason you got the big box.
It's like wasting crayon. That's ridiculous.
Well,
is such a thing?
Is it wasting pencil when you sharpen a pencil? It's the same idea.
Yes. That's except that with a pencil, I cannot use the pencil until I sharpen it. It still feels wasteful. But with the crayon, I can use the crayon. I just peel back the wrapper and give it to Austin.
That's
he makes it into a lovely decorative hat.
That's right.
Of some sort. I don't know.
Listeners of the week.
Rob's like trying to keep me moving here. I'm extremely tired. I got very little sleep last. So I am very punchy and not at all prepared for this podcast, but I promise you next week I'm going to be on my game.
Oh, yeah.
To become a listener of the week, all you have to do is... well, you got to support the podcast in some way. Then let us know about it. One way you can support the podcast is going to www.avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That'll send you to a PayPal donation, which you can use your PayPal account or a credit card, which you can put in there. And PayPal does its magic, takes its cut, and sends us whatever it deems us worthy of, which I think is like 95% or something like that.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. If you use the PayPal, I don't think it takes anything, though. Just saying. You can also support the podcast by talking us up to somebody. But if you clicked on this week, the people who clicked on the link were Vincent, Rohan, Heath, and Russell. And I think somebody else.
Oh, okay. Well, Vincent, Rohan, Heath, Russell, for sure. We know that we received your donations. Tom's the only one who sees that stuff, so... That's all on you, buddy.
I went through all my emails frantically looking because I was like, I think there's somebody else. And I could not find anything. So if you donated this week at all, since the last podcast, since podcast 501, if you donated since then and your name wasn't mentioned on 501 and it's not mentioned on 502, let me know because I may have missed you.
Now, I know I saw somebody who wrote us a question today. Now, we prepare our topic list ahead of time. So somebody did write to us today who said that they donated, and that will show up. Oh, that was Russell? Okay, well, nuts to that idea then. I was trying to bill you out.
All right. So Vincent, Rohan, Heath, and Russell, thank you very much for your donations.
Thank you, guys.
Those will go to support the AV Rant coffers, which we are using to pay for hosting fees and other such things, including some of the main changes that we're going to be seeing pretty soon, including the fact that you can now see me. AV Rant helped support that. But there will also be, I'm sure, other uses for the money in the future, other than getting us into the black someday.
One day.
I don't even know anymore. I've given up. But like I said, you can support the podcast in any way you want. Anthony bought a pair of SVS subs and let them know it's because of us. Jay bought 2 sets of SoundPath isolation feet from SVS and talked this up directly to Gary Yakubian, who's the president, has been on the podcast twice, and I think he might be on the podcast again in the coming months. So look forward to that. And he mentioned specifically, Jay did, that it was Gary's appearance on our podcast that convinced him to go with SVS over a competing brand. And if you're interested in hearing that podcast with Gary Yakubian, is number 464.
Right. You'd have to come to AV Rant, or you know what? If you just type AV Rant 464 into Google, it's probably faster to find it that way than clicking back in the older entries on our own website.
Oh, that'll take you a long time. That'll take you a long time. Lastly, Heath convinced his neighbor to check out SVS, and the neighbor bought a PB13 Ultra. Got the big one. They made sure to mention AV Rant, and Heath is waiting to hear back on the availability of outlet stock SB13 Ultra units during SVS's Labor Day outlet sale, which would have been last weekend. So I have no idea if you got that or not.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was taking place. We're recording on a Tuesday this week, so of course Labor Day was yesterday, the Monday, the day before that we're recording this. So as far as I know, that sale is still going, I think. But in any case, yeah, he wanted SB13 Ultra units. Heath did, so he's waiting to hear back on availability there. But yeah, a PB13 Ultra, not bad for that neighbor. Well, that was coincidentally a lot of SVS stuff. People do buy other products. They go to particularly like accessories for less, HSU, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, accessories for less. I think we're penetrating the bureaucracy there.
It's getting there.
I think people are starting to say, "Wait a second, people keep mentioning AV Rant, and that's good. That's what we want." And then maybe they'll someday say, "Hey, can we? We hear about you guys a lot. Can we work together somehow?" I'm gonna say, "Hey, you want to give away a receiver?" And we'll do that because that's better. All right, we have a lot of news, so we're going to do it fast.
Yes, we are.
The SVS Prime Elevation Speakers, which were first mentioned on AV Rant on our podcast. I'm reading this thing so fast, I'm not even paying attention to what I'm saying. And that was before any other news outlets. Those will be launching on September 7th, 2016.
Yeah, so if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, it has already happened. If you're watching us live right now or happen to catch this very quickly on YouTube, yeah, tomorrow, there it is. They will be launching. So we heard about them. We saw them at CES, and now here they will be for you to purchase, the Elevation speakers. Yay!
They have offered to send me some for inclusion in my home theater here, which I do not have Atmos. I have a 7.1. So my 2-channel amplifier busted on me. So I don't know. I'll have to talk to him about it. But the only reason I'm even considering it because the height speakers I can actually place. Like the ceiling fan won't.
Yeah. No, I'm showing a couple of pictures here if you're watching the YouTube video. The whole thing with the Prime Elevation speakers is they are angled on their front, so you can mount them up high and they'll be angled down. You can mount them down low and they'll be angled up, or you can mount them as surround speakers like towards the back of your room and have them sort of angled towards you by mounting them sideways, and they accommodate all that with a neat little bracket that you can use, which is sort of like 2 keyhole slots, but they're on a diagonal with the little pointy bits sticking out the back of the speaker itself, so that lets you mount them any sort of orientation that you want and just slide them into the keyhole slots that you secure onto your wall. Very cool mounting system. So I like that.
Yeah, cool. Antoine, so our listener sent us this. He says Plex. I feel like I should do the thing.
Right.
The gut. Plex announced the beta version of their HD Home Run DVR software. There are quite a few limitations to be aware of. First, you need a Plex Pass. Doesn't work on every single Plex media server, and most importantly, the NVIDIA Shield TV currently can't run it. You can only schedule recordings from the Plex media server web interface, which is extremely convenient. You can't set a recording from Playback Plex app, which is from a Playback Plex app. It's really meant for over-the-air only, even though it will function with the cable card HD Home Run Tuner. That's only for clear anyways, non-copy protected channels and content, which is like what, PPS? I don't even know. You can't watch live TV. Anything you watch on the Plex DVR must be completely previously recorded. You can't even watch a show in progress that is partially recorded, which stinks. That's my favorite way to watch TV shows.
I know, time shifted.
Start it 20 minutes late and end it on time along with everybody else. And yes, every once in a while, especially if you're watching like a sporting event, there'll be like people cheering and you're like, oh crap. But that used to happen to me anyways. If they had cable boxes that were straight up cable boxes versus the DVR box, the DVR box was always a second or two time delayed as it was recording. And I would hear people during like the Super Bowl cheering in apartments near me, be like, what the hell? And all of a sudden something, I'll be like, wait, spoilers. But whatever. All of that said, it does allow you to incorporate your over-the-air TV shows into Plex's interface, and therefore you can stream recorded shows to any Plex client app. And the guide data is included at no extra charge and is provided by Grace Note with support for 71. So that's what that's
the news.
Well, that's cool. I mean, if you're like the kind of person who just records the stuff and then doesn't isn't trying to watch it live. I think that's where I'm at these days. What if I do this? Oh, that's
Could
way
be.
too big.
But things are progressing. It's not as though this that's it and they won't develop it any further. It's like this is sort of the first stab at it. They've got it working. If you have an HD home run tuner, then at least you can record now directly into Plex itself. Before you had to record into something else and then import it into Plex. So it's coming. That's all. It's making its way into a replacement for Media Center eventually. Since
and it's
Windows
easiest
Media
for them to
Center
have the
is
interface through the web client, anyways.
Yeah.
And it's the first step before they export it or whatever they're going to do to everything else.
That's
right. Call it a beta.
Yeah, pretty much.
Call it a beta, and then you can live with this. All right. IFA is a conference over in Germany. It's in Berlin. There's a bunch of new stuff coming out. The HLG, which is hybrid log gamma. This is a type of
high dynamic range signal.
Yeah, it was everywhere, and thankfully it's being shown on current production displays with just a firmware update to add support.
Yes, thankfully. Good news. Yay.
That means that theoretically the TV that you just bought completely obsolete.
Well, since SMPTE 2100, that new spec BT 2100 defines a way to translate between HLG HDR and HDR10 HDR, since they've defined how to translate between those two, this should be a simple matter of anything that can support HDR10 should be able to support HLG, and it looks like that is exactly what's happening. So that's good news. Yay!
That's good. JVC officially announced their Blu-Escient DLA-Z1 laser-driven native 4K projector.
30,000 pounds.
Ooh, that's like $45,000.
Yeah.
Is it still 45,000? Did the pound after the Brexit thing? Did it bounce back? Because maybe now it's only $15,000.
I'm not sure, but it's also a honkin' big unit. Someone did put their iPhone 6 next to it just for scale, because outwardly the case looks similar to JVC's existing projectors, but it's like 1.5 times the size of their current projectors. It's also much more expensive and genuine 4K, and that lens on the front of it is huge. That the other lenses are like, I think they're
so
either...
it used to be like... You have to be super far away from the screen.
No, because the zoom ranges haven't changed that much. But it's just the actual size, the physical size of the lens is much, much bigger. The old ones were like, I think they were 65 millimeters, and this one's 100. So it's a much bigger lens. Cool, though.
Panasonic renamed their Japanese DMP-UB700 Ultra HD Blu-ray player for the European market. It's now DMP-UB700.
Yay. Yes, I like that better. That's less confusing than 90 versus 900.
It really doesn't matter. I'm sitting farther... If you're watching the YouTube video, I'm sorry. I'm sitting farther away from my computer. So it's just... I've always... It doesn't really matter.
No.
Stop asking. Sony... I was always so crushed for leg room, and I was so uncomfortable for 2 hours sitting here, and I was always like trying to get... Because I had to keep the... Stop asking. Sony showed their first prototype Ultra HD Blu-ray player that will be out by the, quote, end of the fiscal year, end quote.
Yeah. So, April, I don't know. It was under glass, which means it was probably nothing more than an empty box. But at least it means that Sony is looking at creating an Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Fingers crossed, because they're having their whole big event tomorrow, the 7th, so it's not in time for us to record and say what happened, but everyone's expecting the whole PlayStation Neo to get announced tomorrow. Right. So fingers crossed, maybe it'll include Ultra HD Blu-ray playback, much like the upcoming Xbox Scorpio and the Xbox One S already does. So that would make sense, and at least we know if they're going to bring out a standalone player, there's a chance.
Do we think Scorpio is a name that's going to stick? Do we think?
Oh, no, that's a code name.
Yeah, because they have like the coolest code names, and it ends up coming out with the X-Bone. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Why? Why? You had, what was it before that?
Durango wasn't great.
Durango's not great.
No.
They've had other ones that were pretty good. Scorpio's awesome. Just stick with that.
Maybe.
Philips announced their 55-inch 901F OLED TV. It's an LG panel, but because they're Philips, they decided to drop Dolby Vision support and add Ambilight.
Yep, they do like their Ambilight. Yeah, I would have preferred that they kept Dolby Vision myself. Now, a lot of the promo photos, they showed it doing the disco ball thing, showing different colors. There are 3 Ambilights behind there, one shooting up and one shooting to either side. So there's 3 Ambilights back there. You can make them all different colors if you want to, but it does have a D65 white setting. Which means it would actually make a very nice bias light sitting behind your TV. Go. So for that purpose, I'm absolutely fine with it. Go ahead and use it for that. Don't make it a disco ball, please.
They can do whatever you
and
want.
It is an LG panel, of course. So that's what's actually driving the thing.
Right. It's so funny that this is exactly what happens with everything. Somebody starts making it, everybody's like, oh, well, we can't be bothered then. We'll let them do it. We'll just buy it from them. Intel 7th generation Kaby Lake.
It's Kaby.
That's so stupid. Is there a pronunciation guide? Did it come out with a pronunciation guide? Kaby.
It's on Intel's own website. They're like, how do you say it? It's Kaby. Yeah.
Kaby. Kaby. Why? Why is it Kaby? Why is it Kaby Lake?
It's a place. It's a real place.
What? In the 5 being this core, this whatever. How many cores are there? How many cores are in the lake? Does the lake have multiple cores? So therefore, we can make these. So, oh well, Kaby Lake, it must have 16 cores, just like Kaby Lake does, right? Is that why I'm supposed to make this association here?
That's why they're naming stuff after lakes, dude. That's how it goes.
That's just dumb.
Anyway, it is kind of cool though what it can do.
All right, the Kaby Lake processor includes native hardware support for 10-bit 4K HEVC and VP9 video, as well as HDCP 2.2 support, which is nice.
Yeah.
So they're right out of the box. They're already HDCP 2.2 compliant and 4K and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so that's really built in, and they're definitely targeting like laptops and stuff with this, because by having it hardware encoded and hardware just supported right from the get-go, it's huge power savings. Huge power savings. You can do it on the current Skylake processors. You can do 10-bit 4K processing, but it's much more processor intensive and uses a lot more battery power. So it'll be very good news. But the HDCP 2.2, hugely important that it's built right in.
Yeah. And Tyler let us know that this 4K support has already prompted Sony to announce that their Ultra 4K video streaming service will be coming to PC in early 2017.
Yeah, right now you could only get it built into Sony televisions.
Right.
And I think there might have been one set-top box. I think maybe Roku 4. Yeah, I think maybe Roku 4 supported. There was one set-top box that did. But anyway, now it'll actually be just built right into 7th generation Intel PCs. So that's pretty cool.
I should get a mouse with a scroll ball so I don't have to lean forward. That's what I should do. All right, Google is expected to hold a hardware announcement event on October 4th. It's the day before my birthday, in case anybody's wondering, where I will be 20 years running, where they will reveal their new Pixel flagship phones to replace the Nexus series, as well as a new 4K capable Chromecast Ultra. They should call it UltraCast, and their new Daydream VR headset. I kind of like Nexus. I'm not a fuddy-duddy. I'm not a fuddy-duddy who's like opposed to change. I'm not that kind of guy. But I don't really like Pixel as much as I like Nexus. I have
to agree with you. I don't know why they're rebranding that, but whatever. That's fine. They'll have new flagship phones. But yeah, 4K capable Chromecast. That's pretty cool. That'll be nice. Yeah, that's nice. I don't know if it does HDR. Probably not. But
is it going to be $35 still? Because if it's going to be $35, I might have to get one. Honestly, I mean, if I can't stream 4K, why would I even care? Shut up, Tom. I still might get one. But the Daydream VR headset, and I guess I've already seen some TV commercials for like the Sony headset, right? And the Samsung one too. The Samsung one.
Everybody's got one. Yeah, I mean PlayStation VR, Samsung Gear VR.
Which is the one that the commercials, like the very first thing they show you is you put this thing on and then you fight zombies. I'm like, oh, really? It's a commercial, and I think it's Sony, and I'm like. Just the most trite thing. Like I've seen like some VR demos where it's rock climbing, and you use the gloves or whatever, the little thingies to climb rocks. And while that really interests me personally because I'm a rock climber, I think that that's a more impressive demo for everyone than yet another way to kill zombies. I mean, aren't we? I love the zombie genre, and I love games where you kill zombies, but I just can't believe that that was their go-to. It's like literally, let's just make sure we cover all our bases. We don't want to do anything outside the box because we want people to buy this. I'm like, you could have so much sold that better. But anyways. I probably got here it is. Austen must have added this today. It says it was the last edit was 4 hours ago by Austen. Producer Austen's podcast, We Watch Movies, all about crayon wrappers, celebrated its 100th episode this week. 100 episodes of what to do with crayon wrappers.
Very impressive. Yeah, no, congratulations, Austen. 100 episodes. Good on you. I appreciate it. It's very fun. We were on there once. Tom and I were on there once. We were guests.
I was really looking forward to cursing uncontrollably on that thing about Star Wars, but I didn't end up cursing that much. I felt kind of bad. I felt that was a wasted opportunity on my part. All right, let's get to the comments here. We are 21 minutes into this podcast. Let's get Ash sent us some, and these Ash is who does our graphics. He sent our 500th thing, and Ash sent me an email, or us an email, asking about graphics for the once we change formats a little bit, do more videos. And Ash, I do have some things to talk to you about, which I will someday tell you, or make Austen do it. I don't know. I've just been so busy. He sent them some photos of the DIY bass traps he made using some spare bookshelves as frames. He said the insulation inside the shelves is 20 centimeters thick, which still leaves a bit of an air gap, and the improvement in the sound in this room is really noticeable, so he tends to build more. I was super impressed with these things. Can I just say that?
Nice? I mean, they blend right in, and if anyone who says there's no way to incorporate acoustic panels into your decor, and here's a nice close-up photo if you're watching the YouTube video, where it's just showing sort of the detail that he's done here. Yeah, this
picture right now
is doable.
Show it to your wife right now, Rohan. Do it, because this right here, this blew my mind. You can literally put this up on a wall. You can mount it floor to ceiling, and people will just think it's a bookshelf with a cover on it, and they're like, where's the books? You're like,
right.
I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yeah. It looks, you could say it's just to keep the dust off the books behind if you need to.
That's right. It's just like fabric covered doors, and you see those all the time. This is amazing. Ash,
it's very cool.
Completely knocked it out of the park with that one. I was like, I saw that and went, oh, why have we not done this yet? Why have I not done this? I should do this. I mean, you can buy for at IKEA or IKEA or whatever, cheap, really inexpensive bookshelves, and then do this with, and suddenly you've got something that makes everybody happy. It is amazing. All right, Michael also wanted to let us know that his Denon AVR X1200W got the DTS X firmware update this week as well. So that's going on. We're seeing updates coming out for DTS X for the whatever 2 movies that there are out there.
Confirmed from multiple people now.
There we go. All right, so this is leftover from last week, the 2 I skipped. Larry is planning to upgrade the family AV setup to take advantage of 4K and HDR. This will include a new TV receiver and Ultra HD Blu-ray player, with the purchasing spread out over the next year or so to lessen the financial pain. The receiver will be first, and the TV will be after CES 2017 to potentially take advantage of the new models and features. His current receiver is a Yamaha, so naturally he looked first at Yamaha for the upgrade, but notice that the RX-A860 and any model numbers below it, plus the entire RX line, only have up to 3 HDMI ports with HDCP 2.2. This is a concern for him, as he's not sure how many future components, such as the new Roku, will require HDCP 2.2. Dan Marantz don't seem to suffer from this problem. A Marantz SR5011 seems like it would fit his needs, but what do we think of the Denon AVR X2300W or S920W? Are they comparable to the 5011? He only needs 5.1, as Atmos would never be approved by the design committee.
All right.
Well, really, if you're going to go Denon and Marantz, the thing that I am most concerned about is what version of Odyssey you're getting.
Yes.
And if whichever is the cheapest one that gives you the full platinum, whatever they're calling it these days,
if you can get it, sure, yeah.
If you can afford that, that's sort of the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I mean, to answer directly, the S920, the X2300, and the Marantz SR5011 are all based on the same platform. The innards of those, the amplifiers in those, all the same. There's a few little minor detail differences in their features. So the S series, I almost say, if you can afford to go any higher, if you can afford to get the X series or the Marantz, do so, because the S series tops out at Odyssey Mult EQ, whereas the X series and the Marantz models get Mult EQ XT. So that to me is a pretty easy choice. Let's eliminate the S920. Then we have to look at the X2300 is a new model. It's replacing the X2200. And you can still get the X2200 at accessories for less. And I think it's about $400 right now, which pretty darn nice.
That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, so that's Mult EQ XT. All right. Now, strangely, the X2300, now the things that it added was basically it got the ability to do dual band Wi-Fi, because the X2200 only had 2.4 gigahertz and now they have 2.4 and 5. Okay, probably not super important for a Navy receiver. You can do like the higher crazy 5.6 megahertz version of DSD. I absolutely do not care about that.
So two things I have never used on my receiver. Keep going.
And then about the only one you might care about is the X2300 can make use of that new Odyssey app, which is a $30 extra fee that lets you change manually the target curves if you want to. I don't really think you need to do that, but if you wanted to do that, that's sort of the key thing that the X2300 can do. Now, the X2300 gave up something in order to do all that. It no longer converts analog video to HDMI. Ooh. Which, if you have nothing but HDMI sources, who cares?
That's
but
true.
if you have even one analog video source, like maybe you still have a Wii or it could be whatever it is, but if you have one analog source,
I hate the Wii so much.
It can't convert to HDMI. So I'm almost saying, I mean, the X2200, darn good deal, because you can still get it and you basically aren't giving anything up versus the brand new X2300. Now, there's one other wrinkle to this, which is there is the X3300, which is replacing, of course, the X3200. Now, there was a big upgrade because the X3300 now has Odyssey Mult EQ XT32 with sub EQ HT. That's a big step up. Yeah. Now, it's a $1,000 receiver, but he was considering the Marantz SR5011, which is a $900 receiver. So the question is, do you want to pay half of what you might have paid, even less than half, and basically get what the 2300 was, or are you willing to pay $100 more to get the X3300 to step up to Mult EQ XT32?
Or are you willing to spend $400 now on a receiver so that you get the upgrade that you want right now, and then a year from now spend another $400 on the X3300 when it goes to accessories for less?
That's true.
And you will end up spending the same amount that you would have spent on the X3300 in the first place. So
now, between the Denon and the Marantz, like the X2300 and the SR5011, they're essentially sister models, but the Marantz, which is $100 more than the X2300 at full retail, it adds a full set of pre-outs, which is kind of nice. The X3300 has pre-outs, the X2300 does not. But the SR5011 from Marantz does have a full set of pre-outs. That's kind of nice. And it's the only one out of all of these, only the Marantz out of all these models we talked about, has 7.1 analog audio inputs. Which again, you probably don't care, but if that's really important to you, then Marantz is the only way to go. Also, the SR5011 retained the analog video to HDMI conversion capability. It didn't drop it the way the X2300 did.
That's a $1,000 receiver anyways, though, right?
Well, it's a $900 receiver.
Well, if you're going to spend that, you're going to get the X3300.
I know, that's what I'm thinking, right? So
if you're going to spend $900, you're going to spend $1,000.
We might have just confused the whole thing anyway, but basically, if you were going to be happy with the X2300, then go get the X2200. That's what I would do.
Spend less than half.
If you were like, maybe I want the SR5011 for the full pre-outs or the analog video conversion or something like that, maybe spend $100 more, get the X3300 from Denon so that you get Mult EQ XT32. So that should hopefully sort it out.
Yeah. Vince has a Samsung plasma that he loves, but eventually he'll upgrade once HDR isn't the Wild West, as he terms it. However, he has some concerns. It seems to Vince that in the land of standard dynamic range, the OLED is king, having taken the crown from plasma. But will the same be true in the neighboring land of HDR? A lot of metaphors going on in this question.
There is.
It's very creative. He knows that contrast ratio is important, but it seems that the visual impact of, say, 600 nits versus 2000 nits would be much greater than 0.0001 nits versus 0.01 nits. Do we agree? Right now, OLEDs offset their brightness limitations with near perfect black levels. But as we move towards 4,000 nit capable LCDs, will that lose its importance? Will brighter simply be seen as better and cause OLED to die an early death? Now, there is honestly, there is no real understanding the importance of black levels in a display, in my opinion. When you're the number one thing, I think it's something that everybody can see. They can clearly see when black levels are being crushed. It's something that happens, and people are like, "What is that? Why does it do that?" And they blame it on. They don't ever blame their TV. They blame it on the movie, or they blame it on the cable box, or they blame it on something else. And I'm like, "Dude, your TV is jacked up. Let me fix your settings." They're like, "No, it's too dim now." I'm like, "Yeah, because we're trying to make sure that black is black, and you're not crushing all these black. Getting all the stair stepping and halo effect and all kinds of stuff that you see when black levels are being crushed." I don't think that OLEDs, I mean, I think that black levels will always be a very important specification, regardless of how bright we get things or how bright we can get things, because when it stops being bright, you're going to know that the black levels are bad immediately.
Yeah, I mean, the super duper bright ability, first of all, it is only these tiny little highlights. That's the only place it's showing up, because the average picture level, the average brightness of a scene really hasn't changed. We still, honestly, we want that to remain mostly within standard dynamic range so that doesn't scorch our eyeballs. We don't want to have to be squinting just to look at our TV every time anything white shows up on the screen. That wouldn't be very pleasant. Yeah. So the actual average picture level hasn't changed a whole lot. Now, the difference in going from 1,000 nits to 2,000 nits, from 2,000 nits to 4,000 nits, is surprisingly little to our human eye, because there is this huge logarithmic rise on that end where things have to get massively brighter in order for our eye to notice that it got any brighter. So honestly, if OLED can get to 1,000 nits, then I think it wins just in overall look. I don't think having an LCD that can go to 2,000 or 4,000 but can't have the same super deep black levels will look anywhere near as good. But there is one issue with what's going on right now with this 540, 600 type nit peak output of current OLEDs. The issue going on there is sort of what we were talking about with Stacey Spears when he was on Home Theater Geeks, when he was saying that basically they're not tone mapping things correctly, that right. a lot of content is being mastered at 1,000 nits, but things aren't being tone mapped correctly, or in fact on the discs themselves or on the streams themselves coming from Voodoo or what have you, they're not even putting the metadata in there. So there's no way that even if the tone mapping existed in the TV that it could function, because it relies on the metadata being there in the first place. So what has sort of happened is this whole Ultra HD alliance has in a roundabout way almost created a new sort of standard of just 1,000 nits is what a lot of stuff is being mastered to. It's what a lot of mastering displays use, and then it's what like Samsung's SUHD TVs can hit. And so people have shown, particularly with the movie Pan, because the movie Pan is available both in Dolby Vision and in HDR10, but it was mastered at 4,000 nits. It was mastered on a Dolby Vision display. And they've been showing how when you show it on a Samsung TV that can hit 1,000 nits or more, and it will tone map from 4,000 down to 1,000, it looks great. So does the Dolby Vision version on an LG OLED. In fact, you put them side by side, and yes, like the bright sun blob in the sky, which is the thing that everybody looks at because it actually shows up as a circle when it's done properly, and it just shows up as kind of diffuse mush when it isn't done properly. Well, you can see the same amount of detail in the OLED in Dolby Vision, and you can see the same amount of detail on the Samsung in HDR10, but on other TVs that aren't tone mapping it correctly, it turns to mush. Or if you show the HDR10 version on the LG OLED, it turns to mush because it doesn't have the metadata to support it. So basically, if OLEDs can get to 1,000 nits, it means they won't have to tone map a whole bunch of stuff, because that's sort of become the new de facto standard. So that's really what I'm waiting for. If they do that, I think they win. And since he's waiting anyway, and stuff keeps advancing because LG has invested heavily in OLED, I really think that is a possibility. Or they'll get really close. They'll get to like 900 nits or something, and it really won't matter too much. So that's my opinion anyway.
And once again, LCD will do the same thing they did with plasmas, and they'll advertise how they can now do 120 hertz instead of, just 60 hertz. And what we do like 6 quadrillion hertz. So shut up. What are you talking about?
But, I mean, the other side of it is your viewing environment does matter.
Yeah.
Because if you're in a pitch black room, you're going to notice the super dark black levels more than the peak brightness. If you're in a really bright sunlit room, you're going to notice that you have more light output and the black levels are going to be masked anyway because, your eye is just going to be biased by all that sunlight in the room. You're not going to notice the super dark black levels. So viewing environment matters a lot. So again, I would say if you're in a really dark environment, OLED is probably going to look better all the time. Even if it can't get quite as bright. If you're in a super sunlit room, you're not going to notice that the OLED is getting any blacker, and then you're going to want to go for the brighter output, I would think. So there's that to consider too.
All right. Chris. Now, Chris has decided to upgrade his front speakers first rather than the subwoofers. Now, this is the guy, he had a real small room. Is that right? Am I remember this guy correctly?
No, I mean, it was a living room attached to a kitchen, and then the stairway that went upstairs, and the stairway was wide open. So he was like, is this room just too much to even try to upgrade anything? We're like, no. Go ahead.
Didn't we say the door? Wasn't that our thing?
Oh, that was somebody else, but it would work for him too. He could put a door at the bottom, in fact, but
yeah. Anyways, he decided to upgrade his front speakers first rather than the subs. He'd like to stay under 150 a pair if possible, but also wants to make sure he's getting something that he can live with for a long time, as he won't be upgrading again anytime soon. We've mentioned the Pioneer Andrew Jones speakers often. Are they truly that great? Or should he be aiming his sights higher? What speakers does he currently have? Do we remember?
He's got Yamaha Home Theater in a Box speakers.
They are that great.
They are also larger than you might think.
Yes,
because your little Home Theater in a Box speakers are very small right now, and they're on little stick stands.
Yeah.
These guys are bigger. They are substantially bigger, the Pioneers.
Yes. They are proper speakers.
I mean, the reason I like them so much is because at that price point, there's very little else. I don't know if there's anything else, honestly, that sounds as good as they do at their $130 a pair price point for the bookshelves. I mean, that's not very expensive for speakers, and they sound darn good, and very little else can compete with them at that price. We mentioned all the little tiny satellite speakers that you might consider, but most of them cost more than the Pioneers. Most of them do, like the NHD Super Zeros. They cost more than these. They're $125. $25 each.
Yeah, each. Yeah.
So they're basically double the price of these. But that's just to get you something that's physically smaller. So the question is, how much more do you have to spend to hear something that sounds better than the Pioneer Andrew Jones? And then how much better are they? Which is, of course, is a subjective thing.
Right.
But I would say the Ascend Acoustics CBM-170SEs. Those are $350 a pair. I mean, percentage-wise, that's a huge increase in price. But I would say they're a clear step up in audio quality, but you're paying well more than double the price to get there, right? So there's that balancing out. Maybe the EMP Teks, I think, sort of split the difference, right? Yeah. They're $225 a pair, so they're basically $100 more. They probably sound better than the Pioneers. They can play louder than the Pioneers. That's for sure. So if you need loud output, there's that advantage. So it's like, man, it's really tough because if you're like $150 is all I have to spend, then it's easy, right? Then it's like, get the Andrew Jones, don't even think about it. But if you're like, well, I could spend $250, I could spend $350, I'd have to save up to do it, but I could. It's like, you can get better, but then, what about filling out the rest of your system, right? What about getting the center speaker? There's that to consider too. So it's a tough call. You'll have to sort of subjectively make it for yourself, but just so you have in mind how much more you have to spend to get something that I personally would say, oh yeah, that's a better speaker than the Pioneer Andrew Jones.
How much are the Pioneer Andrew Jones again?
$130 per pair.
$130 per pair.
Yeah, that's retail. You can often find them for less.
It's awfully hard at this price point, that price point to compare directly. These different speakers that we're talking about, they all have limitations.
Yep.
And they've all made design choices based on what the speaker manufacturer wanted to make, what they were comfortable working with, and what price point they were trying to hit. So, I am very partial to the EMP Tek speakers myself. I love the RBH sound. I love how those particular speakers look. They're gorgeous. And they're not just these black boxes that we see everywhere, but they've got a lot more going for them. And generally speaking, depending on which ones you get, and I think their sound to me is very pleasing, very flat, and like Rob says, can get very, very loud. You don't need super loud, but then again, you say you're not going to upgrade for a while, so.
Yep.
Where might you end up? If where you might end up is just sitting in the same room the entire time, maybe you don't need speakers that play very loud. So you can spend a little bit of some of those design choices they made on something else.
Yeah,
now,
I mean, what I would love to suggest that I do is that the Pioneer Andrew Jones you can get at Best Buy, right? So I would say, or Amazon, but if you can go to Best Buy and pick up a pair, the Ascend Acoustics CBM-170SEs have free shipping both ways and full refunds if you return them. The EMP Techs, you'd have to pay the return shipping.
That's true.
But maybe just the two. Maybe the two that you could return for absolutely free by just going to your local Best Buy and getting the Ascends. Because there, you're looking at $130 per pair versus $350 per pair. That's a really good comparison for you to make to say, is this $220 better to me? Right? Because for some people it will be, for some people it won't. But you're risk-free either way. You send back the ones you decide not to keep. I would love to see him do that if that's a possibility, because I think that's the only way to properly answer it in your own head, Chris.
I agree, Chris. If you can do that, do that.
Yeah.
Also, you can also call EMP and see what they say about how much the return shipping is too. If it's only like $20 or $50 or something.
Yeah, because if it's only
it might be worth it to you.
If it's only the bookshelves, they're not huge and they're not heavy. So
no, they're going to come in one single box, and it's pretty easy to put them back in there. I've done it a bunch. Lastly, he asks, he'd be sad if he bought new speakers only to have his receiver blow up trying to handle them. Should his Yamaha HDR 3065 have any trouble driving the Pioneers or whatever speakers he decides on? No, they're not going to have any problems, dude.
Yeah, it's basically 85 watts a channel. I know they say 100 watts per channel and everything, but they fudge that by being one channel driven at 100 watts per channel. But
it doesn't really matter, though. I mean, any HDR, any receiver at any level should be able to drive any speaker you're probably looking at. And I say that not in any sort of way to put you down or anything. It's just the price points that you're looking at. They are building speakers to be very easy to drive for AV receivers that are out there. Now, will you be able to take these speakers and put them in a very large room and blast
and
them?
sit far away? No,
no, you will not be able to do that with this receiver. But you are not going to do that, so it does not matter. So
yeah, like don't turn the volume as high as it will go as your starting point. Start lower, be reasonable, gradually turn it up, and if you start to hear distress of any sort, turn it back down, and then realize that's about as loud as you can go. So is it possible to damage either receiver or their speakers by turning it too high? It's conceivable. I'm not going to say it's an absolute impossibility and you're safe no matter what you do. But as long as you are reasonable with it when you first get it, then it'll be fine. And it will absolutely power any of these speakers.
Okay. Scroll here a little bit. Justin, not Bieber, asks us over on Facebook. Justin has purchased the materials to make his DIY, his do-it-yourself absorption panels. He has agreed with the aesthetics committee, this one didn't get capitalized for some reason, to start with panels behind his front, left, and right, and centered speakers. Great. He already has a canvas poster on the partial wall behind his couch. The frame is only an inch deep, but he's going to put some insulation in it in the hopes that it will help at least a little bit. It will not hurt. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the YouTube video, I'm showing some photos there. So the first one was the front of his room going up there. That's his front speakers. Now, he's temporarily trying out some bookshelves there. He actually has EMP Tek towers that he normally uses. But that front wall, the aesthetics committee has said, yep, go ahead, put some DIY panels on that front wall in behind the speakers. And then behind his seat there, he already has this poster. It has a little bit of a gap behind it in its own frame. So he's going to put some insulation in there. Absolutely. Go ahead and do it. Cannot hurt.
Cannot hurt. And it's a canvas too, is what he said, right?
Is, yeah.
So it's probably got a little breathing to go.
That's
through.
right. Yeah.
This is good. better than. He plans to build 2 freestanding panels that he can put on the left and right side walls in front of his sliding glass door, basically at the first reflection points. Being freestanding, he'll be able to move them out of the way to get at the door, or when he doesn't want to see them, or when, more likely, she doesn't want to see them. So, A, he's wondering where else might he be able to put panels, since we said that his issue with dialogue hanging around after the sound should have stopped is definitely due to his room and not his speakers. He was thinking maybe that the very back wall of his dining area, but that's about all he can come up with. So let's get into these pictures.
Yeah, so here he's got a diagram of the space that he's working with. It's showing his couch along this partial wall. We can see there's the sliding glass door on the right and sort of stairs and doors to the left. So that's where he's going to put his freestanding panels. And things are hardwood and stuff in here, so it's a pretty reflective room. He's going to have a rug in that, so that's okay. That part's taken care of. There's not a huge amount of area. I mean, maybe somewhere on that right-hand wall. I'm not sure exactly what is over there beside the sliding glass door. But if you're sort of treating the front wall and treating the wall behind your couch, really it's sort of the ceiling that's left, right? I don't know if that's a possibility.
That's never going to happen.
Well, if it's the same color, if it blends right in, I don't know.
There's no chance she's going to let you hang something from the ceiling, dude. Don't even try it.
It does appear to be a popcorn ceiling up there, a textured ceiling. So it's
not going to happen.
Yeah.
Show us the picture of the behind the couch there.
Yeah, so back there is sort of his dining area. He could, I mean, it is a whole open space. If we're just talking about cutting down reverberation, having something back there won't hurt. It won't hurt.
It won't. That would not be bad. But I think really that poster that you have behind your head, that's going to be the thing where you're going to be able to make the most difference. Is it possible for you to take that poster and reprint it onto some of these DIY panels that we've been talking about and make it thicker a little bit? Because it is right behind your head, dude, and it's perfect spot for the sound to bounce off and confuse your ear. So it's very likely that could be the case.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
That's where I would be looking to put as much absorption as I could right behind my head. I would not want to have anything bouncing off that back little wall back there. So either, first of all, I don't know what you said canvas. I don't know how well it's going to absorb, let air through so that the absorption will work. If it does work really well, and we do that with the blow test, we've talked about that before.
Yeah, he actually said he tried that out. So he says there's some resistance to air, but some air gets through. So
it's better than poking the eye with a sharp stick. So
that's right. Yeah,
and you build yourself a thicker frame.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you could just extend the frame rather than reprinting it or anything.
Yeah.
Just make the frame bigger so there's more of an air cavity in there and fill that with insulation.
That would be. I would first do what you're planning on doing.
Yeah.
Test it out. If you still feel like you're hearing a little bit too much of the stuff hanging around, my next step would be that. Then would be to thicken up the frame and shove as much insulation, or at least fill it halfway up with insulation, so you put the air gap behind it. It'll be fine. And then if you're still having problems, then start looking for other, and literally it might just be any free space on your wall that you can put something would be kind of okay. Because
at the ceiling.
Or the ceiling. Not going to happen, but it could, I guess. Stranger things. That dude showed his wife the cylinder subs and she said, buy 2.
That's right.
I mean, that kind of lightning might be able to strike twice in a year. He does have a small space near the ceiling of each front corner. Near the ceiling. He was planning on put corner bass traps up there, but they'll only be about a foot tall. You can make them about 3 feet wide, though. Would they be worth it? And should he make rectangular panels with beveled edges so there'll be an air gap behind the panels, or should he make them triangular frames that will fill up the whole corner? Generally speaking, like I just mentioned, you're putting in if you extend that frame, I said fill it up at least half with insulation. That's because the air gap, if you fill up half, the air gap works as well as filling it up 100%. So you do not have to fill up the entire corner of this thing with insulation. That being said, I think sometimes it's just easier to design the dang thing.
Easier to, especially DIY, it's easier to just cut triangles than to try and make nice beveled edges and everything that fit perfectly in there, right?
Yeah. If it were me, I'd just fill the whole thing up just for ease of installation.
Yeah.
And
And
that's what I would
also
do.
a little bit of aesthetics too, because, I think you'll be able to see, sort of up underneath it. And if it's just like this rectangle that's straddling the corner and then there's this gap in behind it, that is going to look a little bit stranger than just having the corner filled with a triangle.
Yeah.
You get me? I think so. I think just the ease of creating it by just cutting triangles of insulation and then the aesthetics of it, it makes sense to just fill it with a triangle.
Yeah. Lastly, he says he still has some space on the partial wall behind his couch. He was thinking of making a diffuser from 1-inch square pieces of wood at differing heights. He's seen patterns like that used as artworks / decoration, but they have to be only about 16 inches by 16 inches. Would it even be worth doing it in terms of audible results? He could maybe put another matching diffuser panel on the front wall, but his main question is would they even work and whether they'd be worth it audibly. This is behind his head again on the couch,
Behind his
right?
head, yeah. So it's sort of beside the canvas poster that he has. There's a little bit more space. I just put more absorption there if I could.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be worrying about diffusion, particularly on the back wall and the front wall. Maybe if you were talking about side walls that were close to you, I'd be considering diffusion. But you have enough reflection in this room already.
You don't need to
Reflection
add
isn't
more.
your problem. Yeah. I would be trying to add as much absorption to this room as you can.
So, I mean,
That's
okay,
all I
so
would be worrying about.
first reflection points, right? If you take your first reflection point and then and you've got your panels, let's say they're 4 feet tall by 2 feet wide, it's typical panel size, right? And then you leave a little bit of gap between them, maybe say 6 inches or a foot. Then you add another panel, and then it's 6 inches or a foot, and then another absorption panel. That panel in between, a lot of times they'll put some diffusion in there just to keep the room a little lively. That's if you're fully treating the entire space.
Yeah.
In your case, adding diffusion is really not going to help you all that much because you've got too much reflection to begin with. Adding more reflection, really what you need is absorption. When you get to the point where your room starts to sound dead, then you're starting to think about diffusion, and you're not going to get anywhere near that.
No. I mean, the whole thing with any acoustically small space, and again, it might seem like a pretty large room in a house, but it's still acoustically small. You can almost never have too much absorption when it comes to the lower frequencies. You could just cover every surface in there with bass traps absorption, and it would probably still not be enough to get you perfectly nice linear non-resonant response in the bass. And because of that, if you completely are treating a room and you cover everything with absorption, then you need to put some diffusion back in there so that the high frequencies don't get over deadened. That what you're looking for is fairly uniform decay times across the whole range of audible frequencies. That's what we're hoping to get. So if you over deaden it in order to try and address the lower frequencies, then sometimes that can be too much. It's over damped and you have to put diffusion back in. But if you don't have enough absorption in the room to flatten out the bass already, you don't have to worry about adding diffusion to get back higher frequency reflections because you still got plenty of reflective surfaces in that room. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about diffusion in your case.
Yeah, it would look nice. I mean, what you're talking about, it would look nice. And if you really wanted to do something like that, I'd say put it on the side walls or even the first reflection point of the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
Or right up, like near above your head, that might be okay. But really, if you could put something on your ceiling, you should put absorption.
Yep.
if you can get away with putting anything up there, put absorption. I don't know how you're going to do that. Tell her it's some sort of like Middle Eastern theme, and you're going to hang rugs from the ceiling or something like that, and just fill them up with insulation. Good luck with that. Now, Rohan first corrects us that his house isn't made entirely of marble, just the floors. I liked it better, Rohan, when I thought you lived in a marble palace.
I would like to correct Rohan because he's not right. His entire house is made of marble. That, in our heads, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, Rohan. You can't convince us otherwise.
It's columns.
We see it in our head. It's done, man. It's done.
It's just the way it is. You sit on marble furniture on your marble throne. That's the way it is. I'm sorry. And please don't be offended because I just cannot imagine that you do not live in a fully marble house. Like it was, there's a marble quarry. At the bottom of that quarry, you have carved yourself a abode directly into the marble quarry wall. They call you the king of marble.
Mm-hmm.
Rohan, first he corrects that his house is entirely made of marble, just the floors, although the walls are brick and the ceiling is plaster, so it's still a very reflective
That's still
room.
a very hard reflective surface. So yeah.
Like marble. He's continuing to try to convince his wife to allow a few acoustic panels, but it may take a while. Again, look at this bookshelf thing. Totally amazing that Ash did. Look at this. Tell her that this is a thing that can happen.
Between that and the printed panels, there is a way to put absorption panels in any room. I'm convinced of that more than ever.
Get a picture of her. Take a get portrait of her and have it printed on the fabric. And put it up
you know how some people have like a side table that goes beside their couch, and it's the type that has like a top and then it has another platform below it?
I literally have. I'm sitting next to one right now.
So that whole space between the bottom shelf and the underside of the top surface, you fill that with insulation and put fabric in there, like the way that the bookshelf thing looked. Like that would look great, and you wouldn't even know. And it's boom, absorption in a room. So yeah,
I might do that because this thing's a piece of crap. And okay, so it may take a while, and more than one subwoofer remains a dream. So our solutions for better bass are appreciated, but unattainable for the time being. But he's got some questions. Okay.
Yes.
Until recently, he's only had a single video source, a Pioneer BDP-450, connected through his receiver to his TV. So the video calibration was simple. Now he's adding a Chromecast Generation 2 and is confused about how to calibrate the TV for both devices so the video is accurate when playing media from either source. How does he do this? I mean, you go into the settings and it should, I mean, you calibrate the TV so that the TV is calibrated correctly. So
right.
Within the settings.
Yeah, if a professional calibrator came to your house, what he would do is connect a test pattern generator directly to one of your TV's inputs. You wouldn't be concerned about AV receivers. You wouldn't be concerned about sources at the very beginning. He would connect a test pattern generator, or it might be from his laptop or something like that.
Usually,
but it's generating test patterns directly to your TV. And he would calibrate the TV, and now you know that the TV is not to blame. If stuff doesn't look accurate, it ain't the TV's fault. It's good. Then
he takes that and plugs it into the AV receiver. Sends it out from the AV receiver, runs his test, makes sure it still looks accurate.
And the AV receiver shouldn't be touching it. It should be able to just pass through the test signals, no changes.
That shouldn't be an issue. Next, he goes to each one, he goes through your sources as best he can, depending on what they are. So if it's a Chromecast Generation 2, he's got to have some way of testing that. If he doesn't, well, then you just go take a look at it.
And there probably are. There's probably test patterns that you can get. I mean, you can just get them off of YouTube for that matter.
Yeah.
Test patterns that you could just cast from whatever device you're using into the Chromecast to get test patterns up there. But by calibrating the TV first and then confirming that the AV receiver isn't doing anything, if those test patterns show up inaccurate, we know it's the source device's fault, not the AV receivers, not the TVs. That's the whole point of doing it in that flow.
And that's what they do. So the easiest way for you personally to do it, and you've probably done this already, is using something like a THX disc, like Finding
or
Nemo
the
or whatever.
Spears and Munsell HD benchmark, which is
a
benchmark.
Which is the benchmark, and run through the test patterns and the tests, and they'll walk you through it, and you calibrate for that source. Hoping that source is accurate and your AV receiver isn't messing anything up. And frankly, it really kind of should be. You really should be okay. You should be able to. You should be able to put a disc into a DVD player, have that, or Blu-ray player, have that Blu-ray player export it with, or send it out to the AV receiver pass it on, and there should be no change all the way up the line. And that's the way I calibrate all my displays, and I would be perfectly. So if you've been fine with how it looks right now, I would not worry about plugging that Chromecast into it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is,
I saw that was weird, I would attribute to YouTube, just whoever uploading it being weird.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much you can do about the Chromecast anyway. It doesn't have any settings that you can change anyway. So if you really want to go through the process, you could take your Pioneer Blu-ray player, you put in your your setup disc, your Spears and Munsell, or your THX disc, or whatever it is that you're using to calibrate. You could try connecting that directly to your TV's input, do the calibration there. Then connect the Blu-ray player to your AV receiver, the AV receiver to the TV. Just confirm that nothing has changed by sending it through the AV receiver. At that point, you're done because you're not going to be able to adjust the Chromecast anyway. You connect the Chromecast to one of your AV receivers, HDMI inputs. You know the AV receiver isn't going to touch it. You know that everything is being funneled to the AV receiver's one HDMI output that is going to one of your TV's inputs, which is already calibrated, and you're not going to worry about it. It's done.
It's done. Lastly, his receiver is a Denon AVR X2000, which he thought was capable of online settings backup, or saving his settings on his computer. But despite repeated searching of the online interface, he's been unable to locate the option to do this. Where exactly is it located? Now,
I'm wondering if maybe there's a little bit of confusion because there is like an app that is a remote control app.
Right.
And sometimes people might think it's that. It's not the same thing.
So what you usually have to do is you go into your AV receiver and get its IP address. So it's got to be networked somehow, either hardwired or this one probably has to be hardwired. And you find out what its IP address is. Then you take that IP address, you go to your web browser, Chrome or whatever, you plug that IP address in.
Yeah, and it'll be 192.168.something.something. You literally just type those numbers in with the dots to any web browser. Now, of course, your computer and your AVR X2000 must both be on the same network for this to work. They must be able to communicate with one another. But it's literally just open up Chrome or Internet Explorer for that matter, whatever it is, your web browser, you plug in the 192.168.whatever, and you look that up by going into your AVR X2000's setup menu. You go down to the network settings, and the very first option within network is information. So you click on information and it will show you the IP address of the X2000. So once you plug that in, it will open up what they call web control. So if you want to refer to your X2000's manual, what you're looking for is web control. And when you see that, it says right there in plain text, if you enter the setup menu section of the web control, which will be showing in your web browser, it says right there that there are save and load buttons that you can use. So I know that this exists. I know that it's there. In my case, I'm using a Marantz SR7010. They are in the lower left-hand corner of the home screen of the setup menu because, of course, as you drill down in the options, right? So let's say you go to your speaker setup. Once you've entered the speaker setup portion, then those save and load things disappear until you go back to the home section of the setup menu. So that might be why. Maybe he was drilling through settings and he's like, I don't see save and load. You have to go back to the first screen, the first part of the setup menu. But they should be there. They should be along the bottom somewhere. If they're not in the lower left-hand corner, they should be along the bottom there somewhere. It takes about 10 minutes to save. It takes about 10 minutes to load.
I can't believe that it takes 10 minutes. Why would it possibly take 10 minutes?
I don't know, but it generates a file that's just called configure.dat. And you save that anywhere on your computer, and then when you want to load it, you'll just browse to wherever you saved it and load up configure.dat. And
can you change
that's how it goes. You can, but it doesn't always like when you do. So I suggest putting it in a folder with whatever name you want.
Good idea.
Right? Create a folder with whatever you want, leave it as configure.dat, and then it'll be fine.
Okay. It's a good idea, too, because literally yesterday I came into my home theater. The day before. Yesterday. Yes. No. Sunday. Doesn't matter. Came in here, and I turned on the TV, turned on the projector and everything to go watch the new Jungle Book, and the projector's in 4:3 mode, and I almost strangled all of my children. I'm like, I don't know which one of you guys did this, but you're going to pay. So angry. I'm like, why is it in 4:3? I don't know. All right. McMansion Chris. So Chris says, while answering his question about setting up ceiling speakers, Rob called his M&K SUR 550s bipole speakers, but are they really? He thought they were direct firing, but with a tweeter at a slight angle compared to the woofer. Can we please elaborate?
Right. So I made a huge, unforgivable, unimaginable error. I mixed up the M&K SUR 550s with the SUR 55s. I don't know how.
How could you do that?
Mistake.
There's literally 1-0 difference.
It seems just utterly impossible for someone to make such a mistake. But on YouTube, I'm showing an image. This is the Sir 550. This is the one he has. It's just a tweeter and a woofer on the front. And here is the Sir 55, which is a massively, monstrously different looking speaker in that it's the same thing, but with two drivers on the two sides. They call it a tripole instead of a dipole because it fires both to the sides and the front. Anyway, I'm sorry. I absolutely, your 550s are the ones that are just a tweeter and a woofer on the front. However, the advice of setting them up on the ceiling, firing more or less straight down and oriented so that you from your seat would be looking at the side of the speaker rather than the top or the bottom, that still holds true. Because you want the widest dispersion will be, if it's in its normal orientation, like, you know, it was just sitting on a table, its widest dispersion would be left to right. And I want that wide dispersion to be front to back when the speaker is on my ceiling. So that advice still holds true. Yeah. There you go.
Now, on to some not so positive news. On Monday, lightning struck a utility pole down the road from Chris, and the street lost power for half a day. Half a day? They don't let rich people who live in McMansions have power out for half a day. Chris! You gotta start talking to the governor.
It's really not that long, actually. I've had plenty of half a day outputs.
Half a day. This is McMansions. McMansions get fixed right away. The pole transformer was fried, and some of the surge must have traveled all the way to his house. Theater casualties included a completely dead cable modem, a router which started to have a mind of its own. I guess did a maximum overdrive thing, and wow, that was a blast from the past. And monster power conditioner, which started to make a sizzling sound. And he says, "Don't judge him on owning monster gear. He bought it when he was young and didn't know any better."
I have a monster surge protector. Actually, my parents have it now, but I bought one way back. It happens.
That's right. We will forgive you. Look for the UL certification. Doesn't have it, throw it out. Luckily, none of the other equipment, receiver, external amp, Blu-ray, Xbox speakers, etc., seem to be impacted. But how does he know for sure if his home theater equipment was compromised? He's turned everything on. Everything seems to be working fine. And by fine, he means it turns on, does not make any strange noises. Speakers still sound the same as before. All that. What are the odds that something is damaged and he's just not seeing or hearing it? It's possible.
It's possible.
You will not. Hey, you know what I would do? Don't touch nothing. That's what I would do. Don't touch nothing. Don't change inputs. Don't touch nothing. Just leave it. I hate the bad English I'm speaking right now, but honestly, that's my best advice for you right now. If it's working, don't mess with it. Because if something has happened, it's going to happen in that receiver. And when you start switching inputs around and changing settings, that's when you're going to notice it. So I'm not saying you can never make another change to your stuff, but I'm saying don't just go playing around with junk if you don't have to.
And since it sounds like his monster power conditioner more or less sacrificed itself because it's the thing that burned up and had a problem, but everything that was connected to it seems to be functioning fine, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. The surge protector is supposed to sacrifice itself to save everything that's connected to it. And hopefully that's exactly what occurred. It's not as though we don't get small little voltage spikes and stuff throughout the day anyway. Equipment is designed, good equipment with a good power supply is designed to be able to handle that. We can't promise you that at some point a capacitor won't burn out, but then that could happen if there were no lightning strike ever. You know, so worrying about it when things are functioning, you can just drive yourself crazy because, you know, what's the point? There's not really any way to know without dismantling it and putting a meter to every single component there. Checking. So if things are functioning, it seems fine. The monster power conditioner did what it was supposed to do. So yeah.
Good. So now that the monster power conditioner has, I think this is more we've ever said monster on this podcast, like ever, has reached its time, he'd like to get a quality surge protector. It sounds like you already had one, but let's go on. He's looking for something with 9 to 10 outlets. So what do we suggest? APC, perhaps? If yes, any specific model. If you're looking for straight up surge protection and power conditioning, I would go with the H line. I don't know if it has enough outlets for you. It should.
Yeah, there's one.
I have an
12
H15
if you want.
I've got an H15 and an H10. My H10 is at my parents' house now because I don't need it anymore. But I've got an H15 as well. I got the H10 like on Black Friday sale from like Office Max for like $99 or something, or maybe $59. I don't remember. It was ridiculously inexpensive. So that's a straight up power conditioner. It will regulate your voltage, make sure that and it'll tell you too, man. Like right now I'm looking over at mine, it says I'm getting 119 instead of 120. All right, and it'll click if there's a real big dip or whatever. And I completely 100% trust APC with all of my gear. That they're the kind of company that doesn't know they're in the home theater business, so they keep selling stuff too cheap. You know what I mean? That's what it kind of seems like. They're like,
well, they do have their AV division, so they're aware. They know it exists.
They seem to be aware now, but I remember when they first got in, we were all like, "You guys know that the competition's like 17 times your price, right? 17 times your price." They're like, "What? It does what it's supposed to do?" Like, I know, and they don't even do what they're supposed to do. They didn't even get UL certified. It's hilarious. Like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, and people are buying it. It's insane. So yeah, APC, I totally trust them.
Yeah,
they do have their J. Is it the J ones that are the battery backups?
Yeah, the J types have battery backup to them. And I was going to mention, he's mentioned a few things like, you got your router, you've got your cable modem, you've got your Xbox, which have a hard drive in it and is connected to the internet. You've got your Blu-ray player, which is probably connected to the internet. Maybe you have a cable box, I'm not sure. But anything that it would just be nice for it to be able to keep running when the power goes out. I love having a battery backup, and you don't have to go insane. So I'll just go from the most expensive option on down, and you decide what sounds about right. So they've got their J15. That thing has 12 outlets. Every single outlet on that thing is connected to the battery backup, and 2 of them are high current outlets, but they are 12 amp. You got to keep that in mind. But you could connect, say, an AV receiver to a 12 amp outlet, and it would absolutely be fine. I wouldn't maybe connect a subwoofer or a full powered external amplifier to it. An AV receiver probably
subwoofers
fine.
have fuses in them to blow.
That's right.
So don't. I mean, any quality subwoofer will have a fuse in it to blow. So it is already sort of protected. They're designed to be plugged directly into the walls. They're not. You're not supposed to plug those into surge protectors.
But those J15s, they're up around 600, 650, so they're not inexpensive. But if you need 12 outlets, all of those outlets battery backup with the ability to drive even some high current battery backup, that's where you start. Now, the J35 and J25, the J35 has voltage regulation, the J25 doesn't. So that's where the difference in price comes in, and you're looking $250 for the J25, $350 for the J35. And I really like those. Now, those are, let's see, those have 8 outlets, 6 of which are surge protected as far as I know.
Not battery backup, you mean? Not surge
battery backup. That's right.
They're all surge protected.
So 2 of them are surge protected. Full 15 amps can get through those 2 surge protection only outlets, and then the 6 battery backups are limited in their current. But for your Blu-ray player, who cares? That'll be absolutely fine. So those are really nice, sort of middle of the road, especially if you want voltage regulation. That J35 is a really nice unit without getting crazy expensive. Then you can step on down to the back UPS units, which are normally sort of sold as computer backup things. But you can get one that's 10 outlets, 5 of them battery backup, 5 of them surge protection only. Those are I love having that for like my my modem and my router. Right, to me that's the perfect device to use for that because they're only like $70. Like the
I've used those before too. Those are nice.
Yeah, they're really nice. So they're not crazy expensive at all. And for the few items that you might want to have just some battery backup on, it's really nice to have that. So they don't look nice in a rack. They're just the big brick black looking thing. Whereas all the J series look nice in a rack if you're putting them in there or in an equipment stand. They look like a DVD player basically. And then if all you want is surge protection, just nothing else, I really do like one they have called their P8V. In fact, Audioholics has even put it in their recommended list. The reason I like that in particular, 1, it looks kind of nice, and 2, it allows 15 amps all the way through. A lot of surge protectors clamp down to 12 amps. The P8V allows the full 15 amps through, and it's got, 10 outlets, I think, or something like that. So if all you need is surge protection, I really like that, and it's not expensive at all. I think it's $50 or $60 or something like that.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options there.
Yeah.
The surge protector will be used to connect smaller devices, Xbox TV, Blu-ray player, router, modem, smart things hub, etc. But how about more power-hungry equipment like receiver, external Emotiva amp, and SVS subs? Should they be protected in any way through surge protectors or directly plugged into a wall? As we already said, the subs you should plug them directly into the wall. I would say with the amps, the Emotiva amps as well, you would plug those directly into the wall. The
Yeah.
receiver you can plug into some of the high current outputs, and it actually says, like mine says, this is high current. This is for your
That's right.
receiver. It literally is labeled. And one of the few times I look at those labels and actually listen to what they say, but it is labeled for that. I have a battery backup as well as a Panamax. It's way too expensive. It's only got, I think, 2 outlets are battery backup.
Could be, yeah.
And it's the most annoying thing on the planet. Does yours like beep like crazy once the power goes out? Is it just beep? You know?
My J25 makes a pretty good buzz to it. The back UPS unit makes a beep, which can be annoying.
Yeah.
So that's, again, I like the J25 and the J35 the most because they're not silent. They give you a little thing to let you know they're on battery, but they're pretty quiet. You can keep those running pretty nice. So I really like those units. But yeah, as far as this, like, I have my SVS subs plugged into P8Vs, right? I don't have them on battery backup, but I plug them into P8Vs because the P8Vs, they let the full 15 amps through. I'm not worried about current limiting the subs. And I like to have some other device in between just in case. I don't know. I like to have a little surge protection on there. I'd plug my amp into a P8V, so that I'm fine with. Or I'd plug it into the 15 amp outlet of the J35 because that doesn't have battery backup on it. It's just a high current outlet with surge protection on it. So
sure that in fact, I know that the Emotiva amps have fuses on them as well.
Yeah.
I've gone in to replace them. Same thing with the subs. So you can. There's nothing, but for me, I'd rather plug them directly into the wall and not have to worry that there's going to be any sort of current limiting, even if for some reason the amp on the subwoofer decides to try to pull more than 15. It shouldn't, but you know, whatever. All right. When placing a surge protector on the floor with all of its power cables, how far away should it be from speaker cables and HDMI cables to avoid interference? Is this something to even worry about? Well, okay. First, I'm going to tell you what you're supposed to do, and
the more the better. And if they have to cross, do so at right angles, right?
Yeah,
that's the rule of thumb stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're gonna have all these cables kind of near each other, have them cross at right angles. And really, if you bought quality cables anyways, you're not.
Yeah, because they're shielded.
They're going to be shielded. So speaker cables should cross, or any of these cables should cross power cables at right angles. That being said, God help us if anybody ever comes to my house and takes a picture of the rat nest behind my my stuff. They're going to be like, oh, I thought you were professional. I'm like, I start off, I've got everything all wound up with twist ties and stuff, and everything looks good. Zip ties, I mean, not twist ties. And everything looks good. And then I go, oh crap, I forgot to. And then it all goes to heck. It just goes, it's just a mess back there. And I can't be bothered to fix it. And frankly, if I had ever once application heard something that I would deem as coming from the fact that there's a rat's nest back there, do something about it. But the only time that's ever happened is when I've put too much weight on something and then something unplugged. You know, it's just not something I really worry about.
Yep.
Anthony. Okay. I guess we talked about him last week. So Anthony, I swear to God, my phone, I keep saying okay, and then Google wakes up and says, what, you want to talk to me? Oh, you want to talk to me? And so I keep getting this flash out of the side. I brought my phone in here first time ever so that I could do research while I'm talking. I'm sorry, Anthony. Sorry. After our advice last week, he was trying to decide between SVS PB or PC 2000 and our suggestion of the HSU VTF3 Mark V. Then he got emailed about the Labor Day outlet sale at SVS offering PB 12 Plus at $999. Seemed like a pretty sweet deal, so he ordered 2 in black oak.
You'll be fine.
And can't wait to hear the bass, to hear the real bass. You will be hearing it. So when they arrive, how should he hook them up? Right now, he has one of the 2 subwoofer outputs feeding the subwoofers in his Cambridge Soundworks T5 100 towers. Should he leave that in place and just use a Y adapter to add the 2 new subs? So
as we said last week, I mean, right now he has no separate subwoofers, so it makes sense. These what these speakers have are individual powered 10-inch drivers in them, and they do have RCA inputs on the back where you can send an LFE or a subwoofer signal that way if you want to. Right? But as we said last week, once you have the real subwoofers, you just want to run these speakers as speakers. And I even went and looked up the manual of these just to make sure that it was fine. And in the manual, it very clearly states, in fact, it's the first way they suggest connecting these speakers is just regular speaker wire. You just speaker wire from whatever amp is powering them to each speaker. They specifically say the self-powered woofers are still fully utilized. They're still fully active. Don't worry. It's not like you're not making use of them. There is a separate subwoofer level knob that only applies to the RCA input, so that doesn't do anything anymore. But there's also a second knob, which is the bass contour knob, which lets you adjust it to taste. Like if you want relatively more bass versus the other frequencies or relatively less bass, that could have to do with positioning as well, right? Like closer to the wall, maybe you turn that that bass contour knob down.
Is there a zero that he could put that on, or a?
Well, there's a normal setting. There's a setting right in the middle that is the normal setting.
That's what you want. Set on that.
All you have is speaker wire going to those speakers. You're going to set them as small in your AV receiver. I know you're not used to doing that, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to set them as small. You're going to give them an 80 hertz crossover, and you're going to let your new pair of PB12 pluses handle the bass, and your speakers are just going to be speakers. And don't worry, you're still making use of those powered 10-inch drivers. They're playing all the way up to 350 hertz. So it's okay. You're not wasting them. Don't worry.
Oh, I have to scroll. Secondly and lastly, he plans to put one of the new subs under the center channel and the other in the back of the room under a table. Will that be a good placement?
Yes.
Sounds like it. I don't know. Is there a picture? Do we have a picture?
There's pictures. That's the middle of the front wall, the middle of the back wall. I like
That's where we said to put it.
Yep.
So yes, we would agree with that 100%. These are cylinders? I thought these are cylinders,
these are
right?
the PBs, boxes.
Sorry. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you can put your little pictures on top of them in the bear thing.
That's right.
Whatever that is. I don't know. I want to say it's a bear. All right. Jay has finally managed to convince the design committee. Now, we should name this one design committee, but I can't. To try placing one of the subwoofers at the midpoint of the true back wall. The room is an open, great room of 12,000 cubic feet. The McMansion. Before this, the subwoofers were diagonally opposite, but only within the theater area. The bass does seem more even, but not as hard hitting. He may have been sitting in the peak, maybe. In the new placement, sub 2, the HSU VTF3 Mark V sticks out quite a bit, so he decided to place it against the back wall sideways. Is this a bad thing? Should he place the other sideways as well to compensate? It's not a bad thing. It's
fine, and it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Turn it upside down for all we care. We don't really care.
I mean,
lie to the side. It's fine.
Don't physically sit the driver on the ground where it would be, trying to push itself up and down like push-ups. But other than that, it really doesn't matter. We're talking about omnidirectional frequencies here that are just making a big sphere when they come out of that sub. So it doesn't matter what way they're putting. That's why a down firing sub can work just fine with a front firing, or you could have a sub where, it has drivers on both sides and they're firing out the two sides or firing out the front and back. Totally doesn't matter. So that part's fine.
So Sub 2's new location is on a probation period since they'll need to prove it actually makes a big enough difference. This is because it is a big, black, ugly box next to the all-white modern decor. Welcome to the wonderful world of speakers, especially subwoofers, where you can have any color you want as long as it's black. He never thought he'd ever get a chance to locate the subwoofer from the back, so he didn't research if white subwoofers exist. Are there options to make his subs more white? Well, he got a whitewash subwoofers now, too. Is that what we're doing?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I took it there.
I never thought of that.
I took it there. All right, anyways. He's seen speakers being vinyl wrapped on YouTube. Is this a viable option? What about the grills? Would he just be able to spray paint the grills and not damage the sound? And the other ideas. You cannot spray paint the grills.
Not if it's a fabric grill.
Not as a fabric. That will damage the sound. You could theoretically dye the grills if they weren't already black, in which case you'd have to bleach them or something. I don't know.
Or you could just get some white grill cloth and either replace it on the existing frame or make another frame that fits. That's
or just literally wrap the entire thing in that stuff. I mean,
I guess, yeah. Just put white fabric around the whole thing, sure.
White fabric around the whole thing. You could do that.
I mean, the rest of the cabinet do whatever you want to make that white. I mean, it's probably just a vinyl wrap anyway.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Or just if it's an HSU, it's that textured finish,
Yeah.
like kind of like that bed liner type finish. So yeah, I mean,
sexy. I can understand why your wife doesn't like that. Yeah, you've got some options here. I think you could DIY this thing in many ways. You could literally get white fabric and just wrap it, and that would work. It would not be optimal, but it would work. Since you've got it sideways, I guess the amp is sort of off to the side instead of, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But you could take it someplace, local, any sort of paint shop, finishing, carpentry place, and say, listen, I don't want this to be black anymore. I want it to be white. Can you make the parts and then just rewrap? Or take the because usually the grill fabric is either stapled or glued on.
Yeah.
So just pull that off of the existing frame, buy some white fabric, and then redo that. That should be something you should be very easy to do yourself.
Yep.
Then take the speaker itself and say, I want this not to be black anymore, and find out what they're gonna charge you to do it. Now, how big is this sub? Is this one of those monster ones, right?
Oh, it's a huge, a VTF3.
Yeah,
it's big.
So that's going to be a pain. It might just be easier, literally, to rewrap the front of this thing and then do something to place things, on the sides and the top. Almost like, not build a cabinet around it, because you would want it to be form-fitting to it. But we saw somebody do this with a SVS cylinder sub, where they built like a white.
It was just white paper. It was white paper in that case going around the cylinder.
I mean, construction paper? I don't know.
I know.
Any of this stuff works. But are there white subs? There are. They're usually very tiny and are sold by companies that will promise the world of them, and they're very neat to look at, and they're usually roundish for whatever reason. They're not. No one buys big white subs. It's just not a thing. It's not a thing. So, yeah. So, anyways, does the placement of subwoofers need to be exactly at the midpoints, he asks. He can only manage one of them 16 feet from a sidewall and the other 14 feet. The biggest difference he noticed is that the bass is definitely quieter, though he's finally able to hear the heartbeat sound that Rob talks about in the opening of The Dark Knight Rises. I would say 16 feet and 14 feet is, it's good enough.
Well, and I mean, this isn't a perfectly rectangular room either, anyway. And it's got some obstructions in there and that, so... No, I think you're doing quite well. I mean, if you weren't able to hear that subtle bass heartbeat thing, and I love that as a test, because people go, oh, there it is. There's a thumping heartbeat that gets my own heart racing. If that is masked or just overblown or whatever, and then now you can hear it, you're probably hearing more accurate bass. I got to tell you. The question is, when something really slams and goes crazy, it's a big explosion, does it still sound loud and explodey? Because if it does, you're probably hearing more accurate bass, almost certainly. Right?
Yeah, it does sound that way to me too. The first thing I noticed when I got dual subs was that it sounded quieter until it didn't, and then it really didn't. That's what we're looking for out of the bass. We want bass to be not there except when it's supposed to be there. Bad bass supposed to be, and there when it's not supposed to be. And sometimes it's there when it's supposed to be as well, but it's not the right volume, or it rings much too long, or all of that. So what you're hearing, it sounds to me, is much more accurate bass. You're hearing sounds you weren't hearing before, and you're not hearing sounds that you weren't supposed to be hearing before. It does sound quieter. It should sound quieter. It should sound more even. And I think that's what you're getting to.
But yeah, the big test, of course, is play sweeps. Play bass sweeps. And if those bass sweeps now sound more even throughout the entire sweep, you don't hear a big roller coaster type of sound where some are louder and some are quieter, then you've got nice linear bass. Now, I mean, he asks if, the placement that he has, let's say he goes and plays the bass sweep, he does still hear some hills. He does still hear some ups and downs. Could he improve that without having to physically move them in some way by, say, adding a mini DSP to his system? And yes, you could. It comes down to that whole incredibly time-consuming trial and error way of doing it, because that's the only way to approach it at that point is crazy trial and error of small adjustments of the phase of one of the subs.
Saying, he's got Odyssey?
I can't remember what his sub 1 is, his first subwoofer, because I know the HSU only has a 0-180 phase switch.
Yeah.
It doesn't have fully variable phase. And if you have Odyssey Multi-Q XT32 with independent distance settings for the two subs, you could do it that way without having to buy a mini DSP. So essentially, though, you have to be able to adjust the phase / distance / time, because that's what all of these really are, is a time difference. You have to be able to adjust the time of one of the subs and not the other one. If they're both being adjusted, then that doesn't help it. So you have to, if one of your subs has fully variable phase knob, you can do it that way. If you have independent distance settings because you have Multi-Q XT32 with Sub EQ HD, you can do it that way. If you don't have either of those, you can get a mini DSP and do it that way. But it's trial and error to find out what works.
Yeah. Did we answer this? I guess we did. Is it theoretically possible? It is theoretically possible to move sub 1, whichever that is, to the 16-foot position, but it encroaches on the breakfast table area, and he doesn't want to push his luck too far. He can't find a way to permanently locate sub 2 on the back, true back wall of the opening. Would room correction help him? What Rob just said about adjusting the phase, yes. I personally think that you're probably overthinking this thing, and you should just enjoy your new wonderful bass.
It sounds like stuff has improved. Yeah.
Yes, you've improved stuff. Live with it a little while. If you don't have a receiver with Odyssey or the good YPOW or one, or I guess Drac or something like that, then you that's where you should be looking next to make your next big improvement. Because I think the difference between 14 and 16 feet is not going to be as noticeable as you think. You could always wait until she leaves and then test it out.
and bass sweeps are your friend. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna bet you're not going to hear that much of a difference. Michael's having some serious frustration using his new HDPC when it comes to audio. Well, did you make a video for this guy?
I did, but there's other things going on.
Yeah, that happens. The sources he would like to play using his HDPC are it says I.
I know why. We already use numbers. We already use letters, so this is listing it.
MKV Blu-ray disc backups that he made using Make MKV that are being organized by a Plex media server. II or 2. Netflix. III or 3. Google Play Music and Google Play Movies. Okay, those are the 3 things he wants: MKV, Plex stuff, Netflix, and Google. Which Google's going to change pretty soon, anyways, to Google Pixel Play because they hate you. He did not purchase a Plex Pass, so he's using the playback feature that is offered directly in the Plex Media server. He also tried using Power DVD, VLC, and the Windows 10 film and TV player. No matter what he used, the only audio signal his Denon receiver would show was 7.1 multi-channel in.
Yup.
Did he make some incorrect connection? Is there really no way to get Dolby True HD and DTS Monster audio to show up? Well, not unless you can bitstream it out. Yeah, and if you can't bitstream it out, then you're going to get, like when I connect my Xbox, it says 7.1 because unless I'm watching a Blu-ray and then it'll, no, I think it even says 7.1 then too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
I have to actually check I have to check because I play Blu-rays with my PlayStation, and I click on the select button or whatever it is, and it'll tell me that I'm getting master audio there, DTS MA or Dolby True HD. I'll get it there, but my receiver always says 7.1 multi-channel.
Yeah, no, this was the reason why I was so strongly recommending that we use the Plex Media Player app, because that does allow the bitstream output, but currently you need to have a Plex Pass in order to do that. So he was trying to do it for free, which I completely understand. But yeah, the same thing when I tried in Power DVD, it either reverts to the DTS core audio or it has to do the decoding itself, in which case you'll get 7.1 PCM, which is the same thing, but you wouldn't be able to use it for Atmos or DTS-X because those require bitstream output. So yeah, it's the Plex Media Player that you need, and we've already confirmed this via email, so he's okay with that. That's all right.
Yeah. So just to reconfirm, playing Netflix in the browser results in the multi-channel in sound mode on this their Windows Netflix app does show Dolby Digital Plus, but is very inaccessible from Michael's screen reader program. So again, that's what I get to, and I set my receiver for 5.1 out or whatever, so that if I'm using Netflix, because you're not going to get 7.1 and the Xbox doesn't do it right, the PlayStation will send the round the right way. When he tries to play content from Google Play Music or Google Play Movies, these also show up as 7.1 multi-channel in, but they are 2-channel stereo sources. The problem is that multi-channel in signal doesn't allow him to select his usual upmixing surround modes like Pro Logic or DTS Neo X. AVS Forum said to set his Windows sound output settings to 2-channel, and doing so works. But Rob said to always set the Windows sound output settings to 7.1 in this tutorial. So what should Michael do?
Right. So if you are getting bitstream output for everything that you want in surround sound, right? So if you're using the Plex Media Player app, and that way you're getting bitstream output for your MKV Blu-ray backups, and you're using the Netflix app so that you're getting Dolby Digital Plus bitstream output for your Netflix streams, then yes, setting your Windows sound settings to 2-channel might be nicer for things that are 2-channel, like Google Play Music, because that way you can use Dolby Pro Logic or something like that if you want to upmix it, right? I was saying set it to 7.1 in your Windows sound settings because if the player, like say Power DVD, is doing the decoding and you've set Windows sound to 2-channel, well, everything's getting down mixed to 2-channel no matter what you do. So this is a little bit application dependent. In Michael's case, since what he wants is bitstream output for his MKVs and he's willing to use the Plex Media Player app to do that, and he wants Dolby Digital Plus bitstream output from Netflix, which is a hassle for him, but at least it can be done. Then for 2-channel sources, yes, this is the way because he wants to use an upmixer. I have to say, if all you want to do is listen in stereo, then the 7.1 output is fine. You just go over to stereo listening mode in your AV receiver, which will still work just fine with a 7.1 PCM signal. But in his particular case, we sorted this out by email as well. So, okay, he'll set his Windows sound to 2, and he'll set other things to bitstream out. That can be done.
Right. Well, Michael, I do the same thing with trying to use my Xbox One for everything. And what I was doing is when I was watching anything like Netflix or YouTube or Vudu or any of those things where it's a 5.1 max output, I was setting the output to 5.1 PCM out. Mm-hmm. It would then send everything, and if it was 2-channel, I was going to host, but I would send everything out by 5.1, and then I set my receiver for DTS game mode or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It would say on the front of the receiver, it would say multi-channel in 5.1 plus Neo X, something like that. I don't really remember what it says because I can't see the receiver from where I sit when I'm watching TV. And then it takes the 5-channel and it uses the back channels. So
yeah, it turns it into 7.
Yeah, you could take your, every time you're changing your source. I mean, how often do you do this? Because what was happening with me is I didn't watch Blu-rays that often, so it was easier for me to set it for 5.1 and just leave it there. And then every once in a while, when I would watch a Blu-ray, I would switch it to the 7.1, so I got the full 7.1 information.
It shouldn't be this so much of a hassle. Like, I just want
Microsoft
the sound.
Literally hates me.
I just want the sound that's there. Just give it to me the way it's supposed to be. Yeah, I know.
Why my new solution is to leave the Xbox on 5.1 all the time.
Yeah.
And when I want to watch anything else that's not 5.1, I go into I just use the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
Which works just fine. I should use the Xbox for everything, but I feel like I don't want to. All right. As far as accessibility goes for set-top boxes, he's tried Apple TV, NVIDIA Shield TV, and Chromecast. The Apple TV one, since only the included Android apps on the Shield are accessible for his reader, I guess the screen reader, right? So third-party apps like Kodi and Plex are not. Physical Blu-ray disc rentals are becoming basically unavailable in Canada now. So if he wants to rent the newest releases, what are his best options? iTunes, Google Play, Xbox Live. Can't stream through. You can't rent through Amazon up there.
Nope.
Really?
We don't have Amazon Prime Video.
It sucks living in Canada.
It does.
What's it like back there?
We don't have Vudu. We don't have Vudu. We don't have Hulu. So yeah,
How do you
it's
feel
slim
about
pickings.
hey, you want to really pull your hair out there, Michael? You want to set up a VPN? Yeah, that'll drive you crazy.
There's that. So I mean, we have Show Me and we have Crave TV, but those are similar to Netflix in that they have these libraries and it's older content. It's not new
Yeah.
releases. So he's like, look, I just want to rent new releases like we used to. We used to go to the video store, right? On the weekend, the new movies would come out,
Yeah.
you rent the new releases. How do you
Yeah.
do that these days? Honestly, in Canada, most people are doing it through their cable provider. Most people are using the cable providers, video on
On
demand
demand.
service, right? Now, I think Michael still has some kind of satellite or cable service. You can probably just use their video on demand. That's how most people are doing it, honestly. But if you don't want to do that, there's one service called Cinema Now. In Canada, it's Best Buy that basically runs the. I don't know what the affiliation is. Cinema Now is its own company in the States, but I don't exactly know how it works. But anyway, they have the new releases. It's $5.99 to rent an HD movie, but at least they have DTS audio. Now, here's the big problem because I know he wants surround sound, and they're using DTS Express. All right, but it's 5.1 DTS Express. You can't you can't even watch HD off of any Windows PC using the Canadian version of Cinema Now. They don't support it in their web application. They don't support it in their like Windows application. I don't know why, but you can't even watch HD, let alone surround sound, all right? You have to use one of the apps, and the only apps that work are the PlayStation 3 app and the Xbox One app. So if you don't have one of those, you're hosed as far as Cinema Now goes. The Roku app,
Sorry.
it's stereo only. The Apple TV app, it's stereo only.
It
It's
should not be this hard.
it is a crap show up here. Now, Cineplex, which is like the only movie theater chain left in Canada, they do have their own service, but it's all stereo audio. So honestly, Michael, iTunes in Canada is your best choice. It really is. Because at least you get Dolby Digital 5.1. They have all the movies. The price is the same as Cinema Now. It's still $5.99, but at least you get HD, and at least it works on a computer, which you have now. You have a home theater PC. I assume that's what you want to use. Or you have an Apple TV. It also works fantastic on an Apple TV. So honestly, in Canada, iTunes is probably your best bet. But I'll mention Cinema Now in case if you want to check it out, do their free trial.
VPN.
Yeah.
VPN to America. And then get stuff from Amazon. Hey, you know what? I am not about pirating, but if you're going to willingly pay for something and you have to VPN to do
This
it,
is why people
it's
like
ridiculous.
Cody. This is why people like Cody in Canada because, well, but then again, I mean, Cody does a great job on MKVs, playing the lossless audio and everything like that. It's just the interface. If you want, you can make a Cody interface really pretty. It's just a lot of work. That's all. That's why people like Plex because it's all automatic. So,
Right. Terry. Okay, Terry, last week we gave suggestions for companies who carry acoustically transparent screens, but we didn't include Silver Ticket in those recommendations. Was that because we were only suggesting motorized screens? Terry plans to get a fixed screen from Silver Ticket since they are the most economical option for acoustically transparent screens. And we and others have found that their screens to be good quality and great value. In a previous answer, we recommended Terry get samples to check seating distance for the screen materials from various vendors. He reached out and Silver Ticket responded to say they do not have samples available, but their acoustic materials designed for 4K resolution should be fine for a viewing distance of 9 feet. He did not respond. That's weird.
yeah, I know. Usually they do.
See that guy on? He shows up on my like Netflix, my Xbox friends all the time. I mean, he didn't respond,
I don't know.
Chris. Dude, seriously. And I know for a fact in the past he sent out samples before.
Yeah.
He just wants to make sure Silver Ticket is a good choice for acoustically transparent screens. Can we put his mind at ease?
Yeah, so it was because currently Silver Ticket is not actually they're not offering any motorized screens. They used
Not
to.
that I
I don't know.
could find.
I don't know where they went. But they're not ordering any motorized screens. And the person we were talking to last week was specifically looking for a roll down screen. So that's why Silver Ticket didn't come up. They don't have an option for roll down, but they do have fixed screens, woven acoustically transparent. Now, this is secondhand knowledge for me because I haven't viewed the thing in person. So I'm going by the reviews that I can find, forum folks, all that kind of stuff. And most everyone is saying the texture of the weave is about the same as everybody else's. So it's not as though anybody else's other than the Seymour AV Ultra Fine, which is definitely smoother but much more expensive. But pretty much everyone else's weave, it's about the same. So You're not really gaining anything by paying more for most others. And it's got a little bit of an off-white tint to it. Like if you're measuring the exact D65 white, it's a little bit off, but you can calibrate your projector to compensate for that. So bottom line, it's a pretty darn good woven acoustic transparent screen. It's cheaper than anybody else's. So I have very little problem recommending it because nobody else is really doing better unless you pay considerably more money.
The white screen you're seeing behind me right now on YouTube is a silver ticket screen.
Yep.
It is not acoustically transparent, but it is silver ticket. And I have had zero complaints about this thing. It was not as much of a pain to set up as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was pretty okay, to be honest with you. A lot of people, I think I reviewed it slightly on the podcast when I first got it, but the thing I remember most about it was the people complaining about how hard it was to get the little poles into the little slots. Again, I mentioned I'm a rock climber, so my fingers are pretty strong, and I didn't have any problems getting that thing together whatsoever. The biggest thing was putting the frame together. That was kind of a pain in the getting the hole, because it's got to be really super tight.
Yeah.
So getting the holes to line up so you can put the screws through. I highly suggest that you use an impact driver because it makes your life a lot easier, man. You can get that you can get that screw started, it's going in and it'll straighten everything out. Right. Mitch asks, how does he find the best tone for the main left and right speakers? He's heard us say something about using pink noise, but doesn't know the actual process.
Okay.
And similarly, how do you determine the ideal separation distance for the front left and right speakers? Obviously, the width of the room will play a factor as well as the distance to the listening position, but there's a rule of thumb to follow here.
Well, that second one is easier to answer.
Yeah, it's
the
golden triangle is what we always kind of talk about, though. There is to me, it's a bit false as far as the golden triangle, of course, is that the speakers are as far apart as they are from each other as they are from you. That's like the golden
right. Well, it's just making 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, right?
Yeah.
It's 30 degrees to your left. You measure 30 degrees over to your left. Look that way. Oh, there's a speaker. And 30 degrees over to your right, and look that. Oh, there's a speaker. And that will just create an equilateral triangle. You can do that, or you can go by Dolby's recommendation for surround sound, which is they can be that wide apart. They can be 30 degrees to your left, 30 degrees to your right. That's fine. Or Dolby allows for them to be closer together as much as 22.5 degrees to your left, 22.5 degrees to your right, or anywhere in between. So anywhere from 22.5 degrees left and right to 30 degrees left and right. In other words, anywhere from a 45 to 60 degree spread total. That's how far apart they should be. However, if you can, they rarely should be closer than 6 feet to each other. That's usually you don't want them closer to 6 feet because 6 feet is about 250 hertz, and 250 hertz is just about where bass starts to become omnidirectional. You start putting them closer together than that, you start having wave interaction problems from the left speaker to the right speaker and vice versa. So 6 feet apart is about a minimum, and then go with the angles after that.
Now, as far as towing goes, there's a lot of ways to test for this. There's the fun way and the not fun way.
Yeah.
Now, Rob's way is the not fun way. Like,
okay.
I think we can all agree on that. Rob's way, I'll let Rob describe his way, but my way is much more interesting. First, you need to get your speakers where they're gonna be, and that, like we talked about, you're looking for about 30 degrees. They're far apart from each other as far away as they are from you. You get it about like that, as close as you can, based on your room, where your TV is, how all this other stuff. You do the best you can because you don't have a perfect room. You don't have a room that you can do this with. So, if you want there to be a speaker in the way of your TV because you're trying to get the right angles, somebody's probably going to divorce you. So you're going to get them where they're going to be. Then, if you're me, you face them straight out and you start listening to some music.
No toe in at all.
None at all. Then you point them directly at you and you start listening to some music. And I listen to music, mostly in this case, I'm listening for two things. I'm looking for how vivid the center image is of the sound. So the vocalist, we're listening to 2-channel only music now. How well that speaker, that person who's singing, sounds like they're coming from the center channel. That's what I'm looking for. I'm also looking for how wide the soundstage is, and I do that by using music that has big pans, that pans left to right or right to left, or preferably both. And just listening to the width of the music, how wide, how big the front of the stage sounds. But what I'm looking for is a nice solid center image and a sound that when it pans from left to right and right to left does so in the widest possible way. So, and you're going to be someplace between pointed straight at your head and straight out.
Mm-hmm.
And what you might find, depending on if Vance Dickinson, anyways, design your speakers, you might find that no matter where you place them between straight at your head and straight out, they sound exactly the same. In which case, you've got a speaker that has really great off-axis response, and you face them straight out, and you go about your merry way. But more likely, you're going to find that as you change that tone angle, you're going to find serious differences with how it sounds. Generally speaking, it may be, depending on how close you're sitting to the speakers, it may be that you actually toe them in so much that they are crossing, that if you put a laser on top of them, the lasers would cross like in front of you.
In front of you. Yep, that is possible.
You may find that makes it sound the best. Mm-hmm. So it's a trial and error thing.
Oh yeah.
Now, what's Rob going to say?
Yeah, so where you're hearing about the pink noise thing in my method, now the pink noise can just be the, if you go into your AV receiver and you go to your speaker levels, and you're setting the levels one at a time, that's generating pink noise. So you don't even have to download a file or anything like that. You can just use that. And what I do is I go and I stand right in front of the speaker. And I kneel down so that my ears are right at tweeter level, and I'm like bang on right in front of the speaker, and I listen to that pink noise. And then I move myself slowly to the left and the right of the speaker. And I will notice now, as soon as I move off of dead on axis, there will be a slight change in the sound instantaneously. So don't worry about that. But what you'll find is that there'll be some amount that you can move to the left and the right of dead ahead center, where within that range, that pink noise sounds pretty uniform. It sounds about the same. And then you'll reach a point. Sometimes it happens quite gradually. Sometimes it happens quite drastically. Like you're in one spot and then you move like an inch more to the left, and you're like, whoa, that pink noise sounds substantially different this slight bit over. So you're going to notice that at some point the pink noise changes in its tone. When you notice that, you can put some tape on the top of your speaker or just make a note of it, basically, but you kind of want to figure out the angle, and what you'll end up with is a V shape in tape on the top of your speaker, where some point to the left, some point to the right. Within that whole range, the pink noise sounds pretty uniform, and therefore you can sort of picture this V shape coming out the front of your speaker, or kind of a cone of sound, but within that cone or that V, the pink noise is pretty uniform. I then try to aim the speaker so that all of my seats, because I care about a wide and deep seating area, so that all of my seats hopefully fall within the V coming out of that speaker. That's my goal, so that more or less whatever sound is coming out of that speaker is pretty uniform hitting all of the seats. Now, if you have a really wide seating area, maybe the seats to the extreme left and the extreme right won't be able to fit inside that V. Obviously, make sure that the seats that you care about most are within the V that comes out of that speaker. But that's my method in using the pink noise.
Then there's nothing wrong with that. And then you're going to want to sit down. My method involves usually a glass of whiskey or scotch.
Sure.
Which I find less annoying than listening to pink noise.
Yeah, you can get sick of pink noise, but I listen to a lot of pink noise and sweeps. That's my life.
That's what he does. That's his thing. Mark is having a problem question mark setting up his dad's surround sound system. There is no center speaker in the system, and he has the center setting in the receiver, a Marantz SR55002.
It's a little older,
set to none.
That's
but
fine.
When playing content from his Blu-ray player, a Sony BDP S5100, which is completely different from the S510. The center, I don't know if that's probably true, but it was supposed to be a joke. The center indicator on the receiver still lights up. It's a phantom center not possible with this gear. I don't know, because I didn't check the manual. But I will tell you right now that many, and this is one of the reasons I absolutely love Denon Receivers. I swear to you, this is one of the reasons why I love them. Is on the front of the thing, it will tell you what's coming in on the left. It'll say these are all this I'm getting, and then on the right, it will show you what speakers it's actually using.
Uh-huh.
And many receivers will just tell you what is coming in and not tell you what you're using. So
And
I'm
that's
guessing
the case here.
I was
Yeah,
going to guess that that's exactly what was going on. It was just showing what was coming in.
Yeah, I checked the manual. There's only one sort of graphic that is on the front of this AV receiver. And right in the manual, it says, these indicators display the channels that are encoded with a digital input signal. So it is showing you what is coming in, and that is fine. You're saying, okay, 5.1 or 7.1, whatever. It includes a center channel. That's coming in. I've told my AV receiver I have front, left, right, surround left, right speakers, but no center channel. And the receiver is going to go, okay, I'm going to take the information that's coming in the input signal, and I'm going to map it to the speakers that I do have. I'm going to take that center channel input signal, and I'm going to divide it evenly between the front, left, and front, right speakers, and that will create a phantom center. So, Mark, do not worry. You've done nothing wrong. That's showing you the signal that's coming in, and you've said, I don't have a physical center speaker. The Marantz will handle that just fine. So the problem question mark is appropriate because you don't actually have a problem here. You're good.
Okay. It's getting very late.
Well, Neil's we can definitely do. Heath's is pretty long, so that'll probably get
that's what I'm doing. I'm scrolling right now up to H. Heath.
It's a very interesting question though, so I like it.
I will let it go, I guess. All right. We love long questions, obviously. We love to save them for the beginning of the next podcast, so you know you're in for like a half an hour of Heath. Heath! Paper! No, that's not his name. Head, right? I don't remember.
Heath.
Anyways, Neil on Facebook. That's right. I'm bringing back the old school movie references, right? So I married an
I love that. I always reference that. I always quote
Paper! Now! What happened to Mike Myers, man? He really, his career just kind of went.
And it was pants. He wanted his pants now.
It was paper. He wanted the newspaper.
I'm pretty sure it was pants. I
think they were both.
It could be.
Okay. Neil on Facebook. Neil was impressed with the Audioholic's review of the HSU ULS15 Mark II sub. It's a Power Sound Audio 15S. I guess the S being sealed.
It is.
The S being sealed. Okay. He'd like to know if we think the ULS15 Mark II would pair well with it. From the specs, they appear quite comparable, but will one grossly outperform the other? And at extreme output levels, will the HSU reach its limits before the Power Sound Audio 15S?
And I know why he's asking. I know why he's asking. Because both of them list the CEA 2010 burst output levels, right? And the Power Sound Audio ones on their website appear to be higher by about somewhere between 6 and 9 decibels. Well, that is very unsurprising because Audioholics listed them referenced to 2 meters away, and Power Sound Audio references it to 1 meter away, which would make it at least 6 decibels in the case of really deep bass. Sometimes it's even more because it's omnidirectional. So they are so close in performance now. I mean, at the most extreme output level you could imagine, there is a possibility that on certain frequencies, one might be able to get a decibel or two louder than the other. That is, I can't promise you that is not impossible, but they are so close to one another in output capability that they will match very nicely, Neil.
Yeah. I was going to guess. I mean, they're both sealed boxes. They're both 15s.
Similar power.
Yeah. I just kind of glancing over the specs, I'm like, these are comparable subs.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much. Which is great. I mean,
I can see it just looking at the numbers, right?
Yeah.
If all you looked at as the numbers, you'd think, oh, the Power Sound Audio can play like 6
and that's why, that Yamaha receiver we talked about earlier was spec'd to 100 watts instead of 85 because they fudged the numbers.
Yep.
And then this is not really fudging the numbers.
No.
They just chose to measure it slightly different so it looked better.
And I mean, both are perfectly reasonable references. One is saying the microphone was 1 meter away, which is very normal. The other one was saying the microphone was 2 meters away. Okay. But that makes a big difference when you're talking about SPL numbers.
Yes,
it makes a big difference. So,
all right, Heath, we're going to have to answer your question next week. I hope you're all right with that because all the way through H is a lot.
It's his basement plan, and it's going to be interesting. So
it's one of those.
I have
so we're
such
going to
an
be building
idea for that.
with Heath.
Yep.
All right. So once again, we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Vincent, Rohan, Heath, and Russell. Sorry, Heath. Wait one more
Vincent,
week.
Rohan, Heath, Russell, thank you guys all so much. If there was the mystery donor that Tom thinks in the back of his mind that there might have been, apologies to you, sir or madam, and please remind us.
Double thank you next week.
Yes.
And Vincent, Rohan, Heath, and Russell all went to the website, www.avrant.com, and clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link to leave us a donation. We also want to thank Anthony, Jay, and once again, Heath, for talking us up to SVS, and SVS.
There's that.
So.
Speaking of which, there is some fun with SVS and AV Rant. Our contest for the giveaway is now open. You can win yourself a pair of PB1000 subs or a Prime satellite speaker package, which is 5 Prime satellite speakers and an SB1000 subwoofer. Retail prices on both of those is close to $1,000, so it's a pretty darn nice prize. All you have to do, come to avrant.com and you enter your email address. That's all you got to do. When you enter your email address, you will get the SVS newsletter, but that is the only quote-unquote cost to enter this contest. You must be a U.S. or Canada resident to enter the contest. Apologies to everyone else in the rest of the world, but pretty darn nice.
It is. All right. This is the AV Rant, the podcast that answers your questions. If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. Go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. You can email us at question. That's the number one way to get us. Question@avrant.com. CC Rob at avrant.com or Tom at avrant.com in order to get just send a question. Then go to facebook.com/avrant podcast where you can leave us a comment there. We're very active over there. We answer questions. We pull a lot of questions from Facebook, as you heard tonight. Twitter at First Reflect for Rob, at avrant_Tom for me, and at Austen TEN Pond for our producer. Austen has his own podcast, We Watch Movies. It is a podcast about counting to 100, and now that he has, they have 100 episodes, they're done. Sorry, you missed it. You
the can Count listen to at the Sesame Street. It's his favorite podcast.
So. Right. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.